it is me, CicelyRenee, aka the Bougie Black Blogger, and I wanted to do this live stream to kind of give you some background of how I wrote and why I wrote my book called Living with God in the Season of Ambiguity. And if people hop on, feel free to ask questions. I won't be on here long. I have to go to Bible study at 6:30, so I got a few minutes. But I wanted to talk to you guys about my past 4 months. This book that I just wrote and published, and you can get it now on Amazon and yeah, just Amazon and my website as well. I'm just gonna bring that down just a little bit. Don't mind my background, it's a mess. But anyways, so again, I am CicelyRenee, and I am excited to be here. This transition has been wild, okay? It has been mind blowing. It has been elevating. It has been transcendent. It's just been so dope, okay? Um, Before I get started, I grew up in the church, and you will hear this in a lot of videos. So, growing up in the church, was my thing. So, I guess I had this foundation, if you will. But of course, as you get older, you stray, right? You go off the beaten path and get beat up sometimes, and it's all good as long as you get back on the path, right? The right path. But anyway, so I kind of fell off between the years of like 2019 through 2021. And then towards the end of 21, because it's 23, I found myself floating back to God in my relationship with Christ. And yeah, so in those years that I was just like floating, I was seeking, I was doing different things, a lot of new age stuff, tapping into those things. And yeah, I just never really fully connected to it. Everything just seems so out of my element, right? Excuse me. And so then what happened was I got back involved with, I surrounded myself with people. Actually, I did not surround myself with people. People surrounded themselves around me. And I feel like these people were sent for a reason, now that I'm thinking about it, because I was just doing my own thing. And then it seemed like everybody that popped into my life were believers. And everything they said just was like, remember, 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 God loves you. Remember, God is there for you. Remember, you can go back whenever you want. Remember, like, and it just kept flashing at me every time I talked to people. And I was just like, I didn't think about it until I'm just now. I'm like, wow, that's profound. And so I'm like, okay. And then I started remembering all the great things that God has done for me. And then, like, I got involved with this man who was a Christian. And I remember just talking to him about these, supernatural experiences that I had as an adults and children, where God just protected me like crazy. I'll give you two examples. One, I don't remember, but my mom told me this. She was like, one day you were putting up the dishes on the shelves or whatever in the cabinets, and you were putting the glass dishes up there and the ceramic plates and all of that. And so those have like weight, right? And they could shatter and cut you and do all those things. She said, I put one cup on the shelf and all of it just fell and none of it touched me. I didn't get touched at all. It didn't hit my fingers. It didn't hit my hands, my knees, nothing. She said, all of a sudden it just went around you. And I was like, okay, God. And so I just love hearing that story. And I feel like talking to her and just seeing if she remembers telling me this story. But I think of course she would. And then the second one was really wild. And this one, I was like, I really felt God's hand. So it was like a snow ice storm happening, and I had to drive to work, right? And so I ended up driving my husband at the time's car. And I'm driving, and you're entering on from a ramp around the corner to the freeway, right? And it's a one lane. And what happened was, all of a sudden, I hit a patch of black ice. There were cars ran into the walls and the median and whatever. And all of a sudden, I felt the car just swerve around every single one of them. And I was able to get through with no issue. I didn't touch anything. That was like the most, whoo, I was like, that was first of all, and I have so many other testimonies, okay? But I just love the fact that I had people surrounded me and just was like, remember, God is there, God is good, God is great, and He wants you, and He needs you to be out there in these streets being a disciple for Him, okay? And so, you know, I gave my life to Christ probably around 10 years old, but I didn't really give my heart to Christ until about a year ago. And so, like, I played the Christian girl when I was married to my ex-husband because he was a minister, and I just felt like I was supposed to do these things. And, you know, so I wasn't doing it for me, and I wasn't doing it for God. I was doing it for the church and what people were thinking I should be or do, right? And so that was that. So anyways, I rededicated my life about this time last year, and I stayed heavily on Bedside Baptist. So that's all it was, just Sundays, Bedside Baptist, and that's all I participated in for about 8 months, listening to, you know, Pastor Teray and Sarah Jakes Roberts. They were the main people that I went to every Sunday, and I eventually like fell in love with their church, and I was like, I want to go to this church, but they were in LA. So I was like, well, I ain't moving to LA, so we just gonna be on Bedside Baptist. And then later on, maybe 8 months later, around August, I got a little more closer to God. I felt like myself was pulling to be around Him more. There's something where I was like, I need to do a fast. And I was like, I'm going to do a 21-day fast. I was led to do that fast. And in that fast, I was, you know, asking God, what are my next steps as far as this bookstore? And so in that 21-day fast, a lot of things happened. And those things, the things that did happen, allowed me to have peace with letting go of the store. Of course, I was sad, but I also had peace. I was just like, okay. It was like a lot was lifted off of me, and it was amazing. And so my season of ambiguity started once I let the bookstore go. I was just like, what do I need to do? I didn't have any plans. Like when I quit my job as a teacher, I had a plan to open a bookstore. I always had a plan, no matter what. I didn't quit no job until I had another job. Like there was always the next step. When I was going through, like before I had my divorce, like before everything was said, like I wanted a divorce, it was me looking for apartments before everything happened. And I set it up, and I just had plans. And when I closed the store, I had no plan, and I had no idea what to do, and I didn't want to just do anything because I just felt like before I was just doing everything on my own and what I wanted to do, but none of that was like aligned to what God wanted me to do. And so I just was like, okay, God, here I am. What do I need to do? And so for like that first month and a half, maybe 2 months, I just was like, what? I was like doing anything and everything. I was like, I'm going to go hard for my blog. I'm going to go out and teach. I'm going to do these things. And I just was super focused on what I was going to do. And so then November hits, and I have this desire to go to church. Rewind. So I think back in September or October is when I started joining my boyfriend's family's Bible study. And so I was like, oh, and so we did this daily, and I was like, okay, I was getting, little treats of God. And I was like, eventually I was like, I desire more. Like, it was great. Like, I love the Bible study. I just personally needed more because I was so lost. Like, been doing my own thing. And so I felt like I was like, okay, back to being a new believer, but which is far from the truth because I definitely have a lot that I have, you know, been involved in growing up, born and raised in the church. But I just wanted to get to know God for myself. Like, I was constantly listening to the word, constantly listening to music, but I wasn't digging deep into my Bible and learning for myself. Not you would listen to the pastor preach a sermon, and that's all I did, and go on about my day. But I was like, you know what? I need to get in this thing, and so I started seeking and had the desire to go to church. And so let me tell you about my church experience. This is the wild part, okay? So I wanted to go to church, and I was like, what church to go to? And everybody said there's like two churches that everybody kept saying, One Community and Embassy City in Irving. And so I actually went to one for like 2 years, and I served there. And I was like, I don't know if this is where I really want to go. And so I didn't have the desire to go to that church. And so I was like, I saw Embassy City, and I looked it up, and I was like, oh, that's the pastor that I just followed on social media. And so Tim Ross. Yes, Tim Ross, right? And so I was like, oh, yeah, I would love to go to this church. And so I went on the website to see, what time the next service was, or the services were. And so I found out that he no longer was going to be the pastor. Starting January 1st, they would have a whole new pastor. And I was just like, I don't want to go if there's a new pastor. I was like, who is this man? And so I tried really hard not to go to that church. And every time I tried to go somewhere else, I just kept getting pushed to Embassy City. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to Embassy City. And that first day that I went to Embassy City, it was called the Amazing Ambiguity of Abraham. And like, God wanted me there that day because that word was for me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's what's going on in my life, in my head, right? And so I was like, okay. So of course I kept going back to Embassy City because it was just amazing. And I'm like, and then when the new pastor got up, I was like, okay, he's not that bad. He's not that bad. And so I just kept going back. I was like, all right, we're good at Embassy City. We love it here. And so the messages like were everything that I needed. It was like, God was like, okay, this is your season right now. You're in the season of ambiguity, but I'm going to give you some words. I need to prepare you for what's next. And so that is why I was going to Embassy City, getting all these messages, right? And so I'm like, okay. So here comes December. And so I was like, I need a fresh start. I need to focus. I need to be consistent. I need a plan. And so I put these things into place, and then I was just like, God, tell me what I need to do. But I still was doing my own thing. I was like, I want to do it like this, right? And then Christmas break, I was in Maryland. And then as soon as I got back home, which was like December 28th, I created this plan. My brain for the last week, I was just like getting everything organized and together. And I was just like, we're going to do this. I had this, like, seriously, I was so serious. And I did a lot of that. So I did that for about 2-3 weeks. So the first week of January, second week of January. And then as soon as the third week of January came, things switched. And so in that second week of January, we started the 21-day fast. So that first week of January, it was just like playing around, seeing what's going to happen, praying to God, saying, what do I need to pray for? I had specific things that I wanted to pray for, and I did that. But there were some other things. And then my prayers after that first week of fasting had changed. It switched, it transformed for me to not focus on what I want, but what God wants, how he can use me. And so that was just wild to me. I was like, wow, my prayers changed. So ever since December 28th, when I got back to Texas, I got into the word. Like, I sat up there, created a morning Bible routine. Like, it took me a minute to figure out my routine. And then I was like, oh, this is my routine. And it has been amazing. Anyway, so I was making sure that every morning I'm reading and studying a book of the Bible and going really in there. And I started with Matthew, and Matthew set the tone for my life. Okay. And so Matthew just kept telling me what I needed to do, or like my heart started aligning with the word. I'm just like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do. And I was just like, ah. And so one of my prayers was just like how to do my content creator, my blogger site. How am I supposed to do this? And so it was all about what I wanted to do. But then all of a sudden, it started transitioning. And I started doing what God wanted me to do. And what happened was now my blog and all my social media is faith-based and Christian-based. And so it was so funny. So on Friday, today is Tuesday. On Friday, I finished Matthew chapter 28. And I literally was like, I want to go and teach your word. And I want to, that basically the Great Commission. And I was like, here we go. We're going to do this. And so, like, it's just been amazing. So during those 21 days, though, your girl wrote a whole book, okay? And like a devotional slash, maybe not devotional. It's not a devotional. It's a kind of like a guided journal and memoir of this season of ambiguity and how I went through it, living with God, and how things changed. And so I'm super excited about what's gonna happen. Like, I still don't know what exactly is planned, but I do know I'm in preparation mode. Like, I am in God, he's preparing me for what's next. And so I'm just taking it day by day and not relying on my own strength, and just really relying and giving it all to God. And so I did a lot of giving things to God, and things have just been amazing. I'm like, that ain't my burden no more. That is not my burden anymore. And I am so glad that I, have finally stepped into that. I mean, I will not say that I'm 100% confident and bold with it yet, but I will be. It's living for God can be scary, right? Of course, you got to take up this cross. People don't like you. You're going to get persecuted. Your friends, you might lose a lot of friends. You might lose a lot of, you might make a lot of enemies, right? And so I'm just like, okay, here we go. I'm like, what if people are like, this girl don't know what she's talking about? And me feeling like I have to always preface the fact that I did grow up in the church. Did a lot of church stuff, study the word, but not as well as I am now. So I'm working on not feeling like I have to preface things. But I'm super excited about where we're going. And so one of the things that has happened, so we got the book, right? And then I started a community. And so it's called the Creative Wellness Project, where we focus on faith, art, and journaling. And I was doing art and journaling before all of this, and I was teaching journaling classes, creative workshops, all of these things. But I was like, I want to do this faith-based. I want it to have a good, firm foundation on God and build that community. Because I don't feel like there's a huge community in the creative realm of churches. Like, of course, you got the thespian ministry, you got, the music ministry, maybe the praise dance ministry. But what if people don't have that type of talent or gifts that God has given them? I'm like, we can create, right? We can do things to beautify and show God through creative ways, and show our feelings, our hearts, what we understand of God in creative ways. And so that's the Creative Wellness Project, and just doing workshops. And so we're doing a challenge starting February 1st, called the 100 Days of Less Hustle, More Jesus. and there's a Facebook group for that. But in the Patreon community, I've been doing like, so I'm an educator. Like I teach, I'm certified English teacher, SPED, and ESL teacher. My whole life is all about teaching, and I feel like this channel is going to be more on the teaching side of things and not like, like boring kind of teaching, but like relating it to you type of teaching. And so you can find that in the Patreon community. And so it's brand new. And so I don't have anybody in there yet, but there will be. And so the month of February, we're going to be focusing on heart work. And so there's about 3 to 4 weekly devotionals and worksheets to go through so that, we can go through this together and talk about it. And in the group, we have like a podcast, and all of that. And it's going to be amazing. It's amazing. And I'm super excited to share the gospel, my testimony, and bring women and men to Christ. I will say that my main focus is women, just because that's what I know. And so I just really want to create a community, a safe space for women to evolve in who they are in Christ and go live boldly for Him. And so this is not just other people's journey. This is my journey, and I just want y'all to come along with me, Anyways, I hope this has been eye-opening. I hope this has been a blessing, and knowing that, no matter what is going on, God is preparing you for the next season. And so sometimes the season that you're in is just uncomfortable. It's weird. You don't know what to do. Your brain is like, and your feet want to go, but your brain is like, right? And so I just feel like, everything will work out as long as you let God in and guide your footsteps. And so that has been my prayer too, is telling God expecting God to guide my footsteps and lead me to where I need to go, the people I need to connect with, the people I need to bless, the people that need to bless me, all of that, right? And one last thing is that I am all about saying yes to God. And so I have to do that daily. So every time I wake up or whenever I have my prayer, I say, yes, God, to your will and your way. I am here for you. Use me to your liking. Send me out. And so I've been learning a lot and just seeing a lot. Like my spiritual eyes and ears have been opened and just like, whoa, like it's been mind blowing. And so one of the reasons why I can say that this time is like my heart is in it, because I have been experiencing things in the supernatural that I've never experienced. Like back in the day, like I've had dreams where God talks to me in dreams. But this lately, it's been really supernatural. Like I would see things that weren't really there and hear things, and I'm like, oh, okay. So like confirmation and all of that, and I'm just like, this is brand new. And so I'm here for it. I'm like, God, go ahead and use me. Let's do this. Let's go build your kingdom and all of that. But yes, if you have any questions or any thoughts, go ahead and put them in the comments below. And I'm gonna take off. You guys have a blessed evening, blessed day whenever you're watching this. I pray that you watch it. And you guys be good. Peace and blessings.